say to people, like, if tomorrow you said to me you can run the Olympic time, but like your Instagram account gets deleted and YouTube gets deleted forever, I'd be like, cool, I'll delete it myself. How many times have you done a session and immediately thought like, oh, I'm not too pleased with that, but then you've sat down, you've gone about your day, and later in the afternoon you're looking to splits and you're like, actually that was pretty good, like I shouldn't have been so hard on myself. I presume I can say this now because I've run 3:35, so I should be all right getting into some races. But I basically had to lie to get into a lot of races where, like, I would say, it's not lying, but I'd have to like overestimate my own ability. Now it's crazy to think that I'm writing a plan where like the very last race on it is like try and qualify for Olympics, which is crazy, Yeah, so I'm Callum Elson, a runner in the UK, middle distance, 1500, 5K runner. Recently represented GB a few times over cross country, which has been really good. And not a professional runner by any stretch of the imagination, still work a full-time job, kind of have a normal life as such. I've started sharing my kind of running journey / life a little bit on social media through some YouTube videos and Instagram, stuff like that, and kind of just showing people the realities of someone in my situation, kind of what I've coined like the sub-elite category, which is, people that are not a full-time professional Olympian, have an agent that sorts everything out and you just turn up and do your thing, and also not just your average person that buys the shoes and goes to parkrun and scans a barcode, sort of in the middle of that kind of weird void, if you will, where there's not that much spotlight on it. A lot of content is either for beginners or it's for like things you watch on TV. It's nothing sort of in between. So yeah, people seem to have connected with it a little bit. I think a lot of club runners have kind of seen some of themselves maybe in me, and I'm doing kind of similar things to them, so they've enjoyed it. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment.
In terms of the journey to where you are now, then that 3:35, 1500, where did that start, and kind of how did we get to the point we're at now?
Yeah, without going like dragging it on, I was always a footballer when I was younger, played in and out of professional academies from when I was literally 6 or 7. My parents would drive me all over the place playing football 3-4 times a week. But I did get into running a little bit. My mum had been into running, and she'd taken it up again later in life to like train for marathons and stuff like that. So, the house was full of energy gels and shock blocks and whatever people take when they're getting into like running in their 40s. And yeah, I used to just go along to the local running club when I wasn't in football season. So this is kind of, I ran a bit when I was a junior and did some cross countries and stuff. But when I was at university at Durham, I'd play football for the whole of the term, not really do any running, a few bits here and there. And then when I came home in the summer, just because I love exercise and, doing things, I'd go along to the local running club. And that's where I first got put in touch with people who actually were decent at running, knew what they were doing, and just went, yeah, I'll come along and do training. And I used to turn up in a watch that, just a normal watch, like didn't have like a sports function, like shorts and t-shirt. Yeah, like I'm still really good friends with them now. Some of the guys, Jonathan, who must be, he won't mind me saying, how much older is Jonathan than me? Maybe close to 25 years, maybe 20 years older than me, but I get along with him so well. And he always recalls, he's like, I can't believe you've actually turned out to be pretty good, because remember, you turned up to that session, we were all in long sleeves, tights, everything. And this kid just turned up in shorts and a t-shirt with a watch that didn't even have the correct functions, and he just ran with us the whole time. So yeah, I literally just started by just giving it a bash. And then, from there kind of snowballed. Obviously, as you get better, you do some more proper training, you start to realize what you shouldn't be doing. And then I got a chance to go out to the States, completely by chance, to be honest, basically, where a guy was like, your times are pretty good to say that you've just been playing football. And he was like, if you want to come out, we can give you a scholarship for a year to come out and do university. And I was like, what a great chance to travel. And also, a year delay in getting a graduate scheme or getting into a job or whatever, kind of give running a good go. So that was in 2021 that I went out there. I met my current coach, Nick Aguila, that I still have now. And he basically said, yeah, like you're not a 10K runner, which I thought I was, because this is what I'd done with these older guys, right? He was like, yeah, we'll give you a go over the mile and see what you like. And I think I did 2 mile races. I think in my third one, I ran sub 4, which is like, obviously like an iconic time. And I was like, oh crap, like I'm now classified as good, like I'm now classified as that actually being like pretty good by like the average person standard, because everyone knows what a sub 4 mile means. So that was February 2021. And then from then until now, so what's this, August 2023, last 18 months has just been like, a bonkers kind of almost every race I've got faster or done something or got a GB best or whatever it's been. So yeah, it's been a rapid rise to now. And now it's the hard bit to try and kind of maintain it, really.
It's the beauty of running that, isn't it? The turning up with a Casio or whatever it was and like just kit that doesn't really match anyone else there and just going and doing it. That's what I find so amazing about running, and what is I think kind of makes it so like inclusive. The fact you can just do that.
People think you need to be far better than you are to start running, when actually the social element and some of the best friends that I had at my local running club that were just the people that just turned up and like jogging really and like going to the pub afterwards and like were just purely there for the social aspect. They didn't have a 16-week marathon plan, or they weren't, like trying to run some fast times. They just like enjoyed going down, and that was the whole social circle. And really all they needed was a pair of shoes. And I think the club membership's about £30 a year, £40 a year, which, it's like a month at the gym, isn't it, for a lot of gyms. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's an easy one to get into.
When you go through kind of your story from going to America and then obviously coming back here in the last 18 months, does it feel like when you're talking about it that it has been a bit of a whirlwind? Because from an outsider's perspective looking in, it seems like every post, every story you share, everything you're doing seems to be another step in the right direction to, I mean, we'll get onto it, but potentially that Olympic dream if we are thinking in the future.
From like a business point of view and from a sporting point of view, like I plan really far in advance. So like you mentioned, like Paris next year, like I already have a plan of like what would need to happen to get there. And we're like a year away from it. So when I was in America, it was very much like, okay, I didn't have a plan because I was with my coach every day. I didn't know how, like the races were planned by the university. It was like, we're going to do this, we're doing this competition. So I was just training really and not really having to think about much else. But it was when I knew I was going to come back from America that I was like, right, when I go home, what am I going to do? Because I'm not at a level yet where someone's going to sign me and say, here's a salary, just be a runner. I need to work out, okay, like where am I going to live? Like where do I want to be based? Like how am I going to have a job or a schedule that means that I can still train and try and get to the levels I want to? And as a result of that thinking, I had to really plan out, okay, like, what does a freelance career look like? What types of races do I need to do so people can know my name, but which are also beneficial for actually my development as an athlete? And kind of, I put together this skeleton structure when I came back of what I wanted to achieve. And that's partly why I started creating the content, because I was like, I need an edge over the other people that have been running for 10 years who I'm the same time as, because everyone knows their name. They've represented GB before. And if there's only 8 lanes on a start, like on a track, if you're going to choose between this guy who everyone knows and this guy who come back from America and thinks that he deserves to be there, it's like, who are you going to choose? So that's mainly why I started to kind of try and give myself an edge of being like, okay, if I can message a race director and say, I'm going to make this really good video of your race and the event's going to look great, he's definitely going to give me the chance to do it. And then that's the chance I need to take and then go and run a time to get into the next one and keep it snowballing. So it's literally just been a snowball effect of like, okay, tick one thing off. Has that unlocked any opportunities? If it has, okay, what are the next ones? What are the next ones? And yeah, now it's crazy to think that I'm writing a plan where like the very last race on it is like try and qualify for Olympics, which is crazy,
Where does that strategic brain come from? Like, is that something you've always had, or is it something you've worked on?
Like, I'm really into entrepreneurship and business. And from a kid, I've always had, little things here and there, whether it's like reselling stuff or like setting things up with my friends or whatever it was. I've always been a little bit like, yeah, literally. I've always been a little bit like that. But I think it's mainly out of necessity rather than anything. I think from the outside perspective, I've come at running from such a different way to tradition, where you're like 8 years old, you turn up to the track, you do all the events, you have the same coach, and you have a linear pattern. I've come in realistically, I started when I was 20, 21 properly. So I think I just didn't have a rule book to go by and be like, oh, I should probably start with these distances or do these things. So I just thought, well, let's just approach it from like a totally different way. Like, what works? Where do I think people are kind of going wrong? Or like, why is he not got a brand deal with this person because he's an amazing runner? Well, it's because he doesn't share anything online. Great, well, I'll share stuff online, or whatever it is. I kind of just try to think about it a little bit differently. But even now, I'm sort of still, I'm not changing because I've got good, if that makes sense, in the sense of like, it would be easy for me to be now, okay, let's settle into a professional runner's routine and just do what all those good guys are doing. I think what's working for me is my own style of doing it, and it's not traditional and it's probably not optimal in some aspects, but because it's working for me, I'm just like, let's just see where it can go, really.
Do you think that kind of strategic type brain that you have helps in training as well? Because it's obviously everything's very, compartmentalized and everything's very strategic in terms of your actual training to get to a certain point. Do you think kind of how you approach things helps the running?
If you'd asked me like a couple of years ago, I would have said yes and been like, yeah, like I wrote my own training plan and I got this time and like I had what I thought was success to show for it. And it was, I'd got PBs off coaching myself. But since I've worked with Nick for the last couple of years, I've realized that actually I would be bad at coaching myself, if that makes sense. And actually, what I think is a good strategy when it comes to running and like how I would approach sessions and what types of races I would do is often very different to what Nick does. And often we go back and forth, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm switching this to Wednesday, and I'm going to slightly switch this. And he's like, that might seem in your head similar to what I've given you, but that's a totally different like training effect. It affects the plan. Or like I'll send him 3 races and be like, I want to do 2 of these, and he's like, why? He's like, what? Like not in like an offensive way, but he's like, what's the reason? And I'll give what I think my justification is, and he's like, and then he'll give me something else. And I realize that the strategy is, it's you have to have been in the sport for a bit of time, I think, to work that out. So we work quite well on the basis that I've got the strategy from the business point of view of like, look, I think this race will be really good for these non-sporting reasons, i.e. it gives me good exposure. It's a chance to travel to a new country and they're going to cover the travel and accommodation. Wow, what an opportunity. And also maybe there's an opportunity to win prize money or something like that. And then he'll look at it from a sporting point of view and go, yeah, but if we do this race, it means this one in 2 weeks will be worse, or, it's not going to help you in the long term or whatever it is. And we kind of come to a compromise between what we can do that way. So yeah, I'm certainly, I'm not very good strategically, I don't think, from an athletic point of view compared to like more in the brand type thing.
What normally wins in terms of business or running? Which one is the one that you normally go for?
Running, like literally every single time, like 100%. If the compromise doesn't make any sense, I'll never bend over backwards to do something that's not going to benefit my running. Because the harsh reality is, if you don't run fast, nobody cares about you. That's like the brutal thing, or where I've got aspirations of going. Like I say to people, like, if tomorrow you said to me you can run the Olympic time, but like your Instagram account gets deleted and YouTube gets deleted forever, I'd be like, cool, I'll delete it myself. Like it's not, like I delete it and smile.
Here's my
like,
password.
Great, I've got 330. Yeah, like I see it very much as I really enjoy doing it. And I love the fact that when I get messages from people saying like, oh, this is my closing the gap, or like I took your advice on this, it's like, oh bloody hell, like I'm clearly putting out something that's valuable to some people. But equally, social media and personal branding for me is like a vehicle to get where I want to get athletically. Like I really enjoy my day job, my freelance career. Like that's what pays my bills and stuff. I don't need to work with brands in order to make sure that I can keep the lights on. It's all reinvested back into, can I get a flight here? Can I do a training camp here? Can I buy these spikes that I need to race in? So it's very much like work with people to the extent I need to push my running on, but never let it work the other way where it hinders it. So never be like, I'm not going to do this really fast race because I've got the chance to win £500 in the slow race. I'll be like, no, I'll just come last in the fast race if it means that it's going to be better for my running career than the business side of things. So yeah, running always wins, but I try and blend the two if I can.
You mentioned Closing the Gap, mate, and that series on YouTube. It really seems to have connected with people. And like you said, you're kind of sitting in this sub-elite category at the moment. And with so much running content getting put out now, it feels like you found a niche there that is kind of wasn't there before. You're being hugely creative with your content and documenting a space that hasn't seemingly been documented quite as authentic as what you're doing it. Does it feel like that when you're doing it, or does it just come quite naturally to you?
Like, I don't know if you or listeners will have watched like F1 Drive to Survive or like the Tour de France Unchained. Like that style of, there's a reason why they've commissioned that for pretty much every sport. They've got Full Swing for golf. They've got All or Nothing for football. Like that people resonate with learning, like with understanding the characters and connecting more with the people that are actually in the sporting context. So you can go and watch an American football program, not know a single one of the rules, but by the fourth episode, they've built this character so much that you're like, I really hope the quarterback does well today, because then we've seen his wife and his girlfriend, and we've seen all this stuff, and we're kind of like, yeah, it's going to be good for the family if he does well in this episode, and you really connect with it. And I think a lot of the time, what we've got in the running content space is we've got standalone brands or videographers that will make content about a person. So it'll be like, here's a really good documentary on Josh Kerr or something like that, where he doesn't have creative direction. He's just like, hey, you can come along and film a training and do an interview, and that's cool. And that does serve a purpose from like getting to know about a person, but you don't get to know the person. And similarly, I think we have like the vlogging style where it's like, hey, this is me, I'm going to do this race, this is me picking up my number. And it's more it's more about the person and their life, right? Like you'd still watch the video if they're just going popping to the shops. It's more you're connecting with their personality. So the middle ground I've tried to find is kind of being like, this is me in a very professional, like running environment where you're going to see in the video some of the best runners in the world. But equally, I'm going to try and pull back the curtain and be like, look, you can see this is kind of what we do. This is a bit of the journey. This is, what we do and sit an hour before we're going to do the race and that kind of thing. And Charlie McCarthy, that does all my videos for me, and we kind of set out to do this together. When I sort of gave him the idea, he's like the best person I could possibly imagine for it, because he just understands, like, from when we decide we're going to do a video, he can map out the storyboard in his head and be like, right, I see this is the flow of the video, and if you run well, it'll go down this way. If you run bad, it'll go down this way. And like, he really understands, as someone that loves running, the type of content that we wish we had from other people, because we've grown up watching the Tin Man Elite and the stuff like that, where we're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I didn't know they did that, or I didn't know a call room looked like that, or like, you know, I didn't know that athletes got their hotel paid for. Like, all these little bits and bobs that you don't know. Charlie's also like, right, we should show people this. Trust me, they'll care about it, and it's worked really well. So yeah, I owe as much to Charlie as I do to me for actually being in the videos. Like, him putting it all together is so good.
I think keeping those bits in that other people might edit out is something you do really well, in the sense of like the last vlog that you posted, the Luxembourg vlog, where things didn't go to plan. Like, you kept a lot in that a lot of people maybe wouldn't have. Also, I can't remember which episode it was, but you had a little bit of niggle in the last 200 with somebody trying to go around the outside, and you kept that bit in at the end, which was just like kind of a raw reaction to a race finish where you thought maybe you had got something a little bit more and you had been hampered, and you could tell that you were annoyed and angry. And people like to see that authenticity, I think, and they like to see kind of like that rawness.
100% with the transparency. Like, I think, again, it comes back to the fact that I don't think I'm necessarily trying to make a living from it. Like, of course, I'd love to like be a professional athlete, be sponsored. Like, I want stuff that can that accelerate my career, but never at a kind of, I'm not saying that all brands do this, but I don't want to have a gagging order on like what I can put out and what I can't put out. Of course, there's restrictions, and you've got to be sensible with things and be appropriate. But I want it to genuinely be like, well, this is how I felt like at the time. And if, you know, in that one that you're mentioning where I got angry at the end of the race, it was like, that is exactly how I felt for the 30 seconds after the race. It might be that in 5 minutes later in the video, it's me calming down and being like, either defending what I said, or me being like, actually, I'm not that disappointed, or I wasn't that angry. But the point is like, I felt like that when I crossed the line. And I think a lot of people in their training or the racing, how many times have you done a session and immediately thought like, oh, I'm not too pleased with that. But then you've sat down, you've gone about your day, and later in the afternoon, you look at your splits and you're like, actually, that was pretty good. You know, like, I shouldn't have been so hard on myself. That's just the reality of like how we are. And similarly, the other way around, where like I've been buzzing and run a PB and have been like smiling at the camera. But then when we're doing the debrief later on, I've been like, yeah, but I think there could have been more. Or like, I've had time to really process and go through it. And it does work the other way as well. I think there's a balance between being transparent and then also just not forcing things. Like, we don't force any drama. Of course, we joke about being like, you know, how many views would we get if I got punched in the face at a race? Like, that would be great. But I don't go around like trying to wind people up so they punch you in the face. You know, it's like a balance between what would actually be good to happen, but also just keep it completely real of like, this race I threw up, this race I was buzzing, you know, this race I won, this one I came last. Like, just my goal is always to create a video with the next video in mind. So the idea is, whether it goes good or bad, in the next video, I act on the learnings from the last one.
I think as well, obviously you mentioned Charlie there, who's your videographer, and you can kind of see the connection between you two. And I think one of the reasons you get such authentic content is because you're almost forgetting that the camera's there. You're just there with you're there with your pal. Like, how did that relationship first come about between you two? Because it seems to be a pretty special one.
I can't even remember how I met Charlie. It's really weird. I was talking about this with someone the other day, and I was like, I think I met him down at the track, or I don't remember what it was. But if people don't know Charlie, he's set up like a page on Instagram called 1609.studio. So you should look. The stuff he makes, he's so like, you won't put it out if it's not good, basically. Super high quality. He has his own style of doing it, and it's amazing. He's not just like a sports photographer. He's really creative mind when it comes to stuff like that. And he did some photos for me just one time when I was down in London near where he lives, and he was just like, oh, I can pop down and take some photos if you want for something. We stayed in touch. But the thing with Charlie's is, we were very clear from the start of like, if we do it, we're not half-arsing it. Like, we'll do it properly. So I've been very clear with him. Like, I never want you to feel like if I'm looking like I'm down in the dumps, or if I'm eating or whatever, and you think like it's probably not the time to film, like, just film it if you think it's going to be valuable in that. So because we have that relationship, he'll just whip out the camera and film it, because he knows that in my logical mindset, I've been like, Charlie, do it, because that's like what we need for the video, you know, that's the right thing to do. But yeah, it's like, he does motivate me. I never said this to him, but like, I drag him to these places where of course he's he's coming off his own back, but he's sort of supporting and stuff for him, of course. But like, he still has to commit his time to coming away on a weekend, getting a plane, staying in not the most amazing place, just to watch me run for 3.5 minutes. So I do think like I want to do well for us collectively, because he's got to then sit and edit that and put it out. And he spent all this time here. So I'm not just running for me. I'm like, right, come on, like Charlie will be buzzing. Like, it'll be really good after the race if you get a good result here. And I do consciously feel like a bit of like I'm carrying it for both of us, if you will, rather than just doing it for me. Because when I've gone and done races that Charlie hasn't filmed, like, it's very much been like, I'm only letting myself down if I don't do well. There's no one here else that I've kind of dragged or anything like that. It's just like, if it doesn't go well, it's on me. It's my time I've wasted. Whereas I do feel like I'm wasting Charlie's time if I don't, get a good result,
It was quite I think it was quite obvious to see that when you were down, I think, watching him race in one of the episodes that you posted, and he won a race and you were absolutely buzzing for him. You look more excited him winning that race than some of yours.
But that's the magic of it, right? I didn't know this at the time. Charlie's never won a race, and he's a good runner, but like, just through the nature of the race he's done, he's never actually finished first. And it was the sweetest thing ever. I mean, the footage is terrible because I'm obviously not the camera guy, so I don't know how to put things in focus. I'm just holding it, and like, I'm not even looking at the screen. I'm like looking at the race and just like holding this camera. And when Charlie won, he was like, I've never won a race before. And I was actually buzzing. I was like, you never, like, that's such a special feeling. Like, I'm so glad I'm here. Because like, I don't remember when I first won a race, but I was probably absolutely like buzzing with it. I was like, I've actually won a race out of that. That's an amazing thing. And that's why I really wanted to post a video. I was like, Charlie, I think it'd be really unique if like we put a different spin on it, because I also do coaching as part of my job and stuff like that. So it's an insight into what else I get up to outside of training. But equally, like, let's make sure that like more people are going to be able to relate with Charlie than they will with me, because they're of a similar ability or they're a local club runner or whatever it is. So I thought, let's put that in. I think that'd be a really good episode. And we were going to do it regardless of how he ran. And then he happened to win the race. So it was like, oh, what a perfect thing.
Do you ever get nervous to put out your big goals and your big aspirations? Because it's something you seem very like confident in the kind of the way I see Callum. You seem very confident to say, I'm going to run this time, or I want to do this. Internally, do you feel nervous when you put things like that out?
I try and only put stuff out that's realistic, and I try and put stuff out that is not at all offensive or like belittling to anyone else's achievements. So for example, like, I've not put, I will go to the Olympics next year, because even if I run the time, it's like, that's insulting. In my opinion, it's insulting to like the 8 other Brits that also are going to have the time. What gives me the right to tell everyone I'm going to definitely beat you? I know for some people that gets them going and you need that kind of confidence. But for me, it's far more of like it's part of the storyline of my account and stuff, of like people following my socials and the videos. I like to put or dangle the carrot of the end goal, so you understand the context that everything else is in. So at the start of the summer, I was like, I don't actually know if I can run 3:36. Like, that to me would have been like nuts if I ran that. But I was like, I can't say my goal's to run 3:38. What if I do it in a second video? Because then the storyline's gone then, hasn't it? It's like you can't keep sort of tracking it. So I was like, it needs to be ambitious. And equally, it was like, I presume I can say this now because I've run 3:35, so I should be all right getting into some races. But I basically had to lie to get into a lot of races where, like, I would say, it's not lying, but I'd have to like overestimate my own ability. So I'd email race directors because I don't have an agent or anything like that, and I'd just be like, yeah, I've done this. I've run for GB. I've done this in America. I'm targeting, and I would always put, because it was like quite attractive, I'd put, and me and my coach have discussed, and the plan is to run 3:36 at your race, with the hope that they go, oh, fair enough. Like, this guy and his coach have said he's going to run 3:36. Like, even though his PB's 3:40, we'll bang him in. Like, something must have gone wrong with his times or something like that. And for some of them, they just replied straight away, like, you are not at the level to get into this meet. And it was like savage. And some of them would be like, yeah, all right, like, we can do this, but we can't offer you any travel, or you have to pay for it off your own back. Or like, some of them were like, yeah, great, like, we'll give you this amount of money to come. Perfect. So that 3:30, saying I wanted to run 3:36, of course I was nervous, being like, you're going to look like a bit of a flop if you don't do it. But similarly, I was like, in the grander scheme of things, you need a goal for people to fit everything and be like, oh, this is what he's working towards. So he's run 3:39. So you don't just go, oh, wow, amazing. It's like, oh, that's good. That's a step forward. Maybe in the next video, he'd run 3:38. And it just so happened that I did 5 races in a row, and I literally took a second off almost every time. So it was perfect, me going like 3:40, 3:39, 3:38, and then just kind of chipping it down. It fit with the theme and the story of the series. So when I finally did get the 3:35, it was like, oh, wow. Like, in the first video, he said, it'd be amazing if I could run 3:36. And then the last video, he's run 3:35. That's like a perfect series, if you will.
You mentioned then about like kind of dropping down a second per race with your PBs, and that was I was listening to your podcast Run It Three Ways, which is brilliant, by the way, mate. And you kind of said in an episode, I feel like the floodgates are going to open. I feel like I've got a lot more in me. And that obviously played out exactly like that, dropping that second off each time. When you did get the 3:35 in conditions that were like awful, absolute terrible conditions, hammer it down. I think it was pretty windy as well. What did it feel like crossing the line? There is a photo of you like looking like you're losing your head because you've just done it.
Looking like a complete wally, but there you go.
That must have kind of been the culmination of that whole journey. Must have felt pretty incredible.
I was buzzing with that. 1,500 as well, for people that don't run it, it's a weird distance because depending on where the clock is, so obviously you're always going to have a clock at the start and finish. Sometimes you'll have a clock at the 200 meters to go mark. And then again, depending on the conditions and where the people are around you, sometimes you can see it really clearly, sometimes you can't. So it was a case of, I knew how fast we'd kind of gone with 3 laps, but I had no concept how fast I was running on the last lap. I was literally just running to win. And it was only when I came with maybe 50 meters to go and I saw the clock, I was like, that's going like 31, 32. I was like, and I'm getting quite close to it here. I was like, I think this could be quite fast. And the clock stopped on the winner and I knew I was just behind him. So I was like, bloody hell, like, I actually done it. I don't know what time I've done, but I know I've done a good time there. And I was just happy to like come second only to Sam Tanner, who's like been to the Olympics and like, he's just a really good runner. So I was like buzzing with the race. And it was only afterwards that when the results came at 3:35, I was like, that's just like, it was funny. It was funny. I was like, because when I ran 3:36 in Italy, like maybe 10 days before it, that's where I thought, I was like, right, you've done the 3:36. And at the time I felt like all the races this year, I've not really got nervous for any of the races. Of course, I've had the nerves before, like half an hour before, an hour before, like normal kind of feelings. But in the week of the race, I've never been a bit antsy or a bit kind of like, oh, how's this going to go? Whereas the gap between my 3:36 and this race at Tooting where I ran a 3:35 was the first time in the whole of the year where I could feel myself being quite anxious. I remember cycling back from a haircut and being like, I've been really snappy to everyone today. And like, I feel like I'm in a bit of a mood and I don't know why. And I was like, I got back and I was like, you're actually nervous, aren't you? Like, because that was the first time that I doubted, don't know if I can go faster than 3:36. Whereas all the other times I'd finished and gone, that's great, 3:38, but like, you could have done this and that's a second there or a bit more in the tank. That 3:36 race went so perfectly in Italy. It was like perfect conditions, perfect pacing. Like, it was just brilliant. I was like, I don't know if you can go any quicker. Like, that's really hard to go any quicker. So all this kind of energy I had built up. So when I ran it at Tooting, I couldn't stop smiling the whole way home. I was just like, you actually did it. Like, that's unreal, you know? But then the feeling, the next day I woke up and was like, crap, like, now you got to do 3:34, you know? Like, I don't know if you can do that. And the feelings kind of started again. So yeah, it's a weird one, honestly. Like, I thought I could go faster the whole year until I ran that 3:36. And then I was really like, kind of getting, you can't do this forever, mate. Like, you'll get the world record in a few races if you do this.
I don't know who was more excited, you or Lloyd Kempson on the commentary. I'm not entirely sure. He was pretty elated about it as well.
I think Lloyd was just pleased that he had a good race because on paper, like, Sam Tanner should have, like, you know, destroyed everyone, and like, that's boring commentary, and it like, oh, Sam Tanner's winning by 50 meters or whatever. But yeah, for context for that race, you can go on Trackster on Instagram and you can see Lloyd's commentaries of it. It's great. But Sam he ran the London Diamond League on the Sunday. He did a hard workout on the Monday, and then this race was on the Wednesday because he was trying to recreate like the heats, the semi-finals, and the final at the World Champs. So like, on paper for me, it looks great. Like, oh, I finished 0.2 seconds away. But like, if you look at the training, I've been like tapering, preparing, like getting in this nervous state. He's just like, you know, done 3 hard workouts and just rocked up for a Wednesday night session. So yeah, the results don't tell the full story.
It just feels like you backed it up though, like running that time in Italy and then backing it up. Again, I think on Charlie's Instagram, I saw him post something, can he do it on a wet night in Tooting or something like that? It's like, it feels like you've done it. You've really done it now and you've nailed it. So looking forward into the future then to, let's say, next season, what is the goal? I feel like we might have already covered it, but how are you going to progress to that? And I know you've got a big project coming up, which I'm sure you can't say anything about, but how excited are you about the future?
I'm buzzing. Like, I'm really excited, just generally speaking. I've got a lot of intermediate goals. Like, of course, the idea is be as fit and as fast as possible by, June next year or whenever the British Champs is. And by that point, I need to have run the Olympic time if I can, which is 3:33.5. So like, again, I'm going in with the logic of like, this year I dropped 5 seconds off my time. I need to find another 2.7 seconds or something like that. So it's like not impossible progress, but equally every second gets harder as you get faster. So there's going to be loads of spanners in the works about like, can I get into the races where people are going to run that? Every single runner, the top 300, 400 runners in the world are all going to be trying to run 3:33. The race is going to be hard to get into. There's all those little things that need ironing out. And in my head, none of it really matters until March next year, if I'm in good shape or not. Because if I'm not in good shape in March or April, well, all these great ideas about running this and getting in this race and doing that, it's all irrelevant if you're not fit and stuff like that. So between now and then, it's just about doing other things that can get me in the best possible ability, both from an athletic point of view, but also like, what can help build my exposure? Can I work with some different people? Can I explore different things I've not done before, like going on altitude training camps, or, can I represent GB at this event that I've not previously done, and all those different types of things. But yeah, the long-term strategy is all thinking about how I can kind of arrive in next summer with the best possible chance of giving it a good go. Because even though I've not got the time, and British 1500 meter runner is like the most, stacked event in the world, I'm the sort of person where if I don't give it a proper good shot and go in with the mindset of like, right, I'm going to try and do it, then I'm not doing myself justice. Like, I deserve to give myself the mindset of being like, hey, you've got to have the mindset that you're on an equal playing field with these guys and you're going to go and compete with them. Because if I turn up a bit scared, a bit like, oh, well, they've been professional and they've done this, then you're already losing. I've got to at least put myself in the race a little bit, I think. And being a bit of an unknown quantity, I think that's an advantage for me, because some people will be like, he's never going to go any quicker than that. And some people will be like, God, he's progressed a lot. Like, what if he runs 3:30, which is a great position to be in because no one knows how well you're going to do. So yeah, that's the like thing from an athletics point of view. And then outside of that, in terms of the content, like you mentioned, the project and stuff, I want to try and do way more for like, the running community is such a loose term, but like the UK club scene specifically, I think there's so many cool stories. Like, people will be listening to me thinking, oh, that's a unique story. But like half the people I train with are like full-time NHS doctors and also like England marathoners. And like the people have all these really unique stories that through the nature of them not putting themselves out there, no one's ever heard of them and stuff like that. So if I can use my position to try and, wangle a bit of money from brands or different things like that in order to, get with Charlie and make something really quality about either these athletes or about the different events like the road relays and stuff like that, I think there's loads of cool content things we can do to sort of bring the UK club scene a little bit more alive, which is what I'm really trying to work on in the background. Because I don't want my YouTube channel to just be like every video is me turning up to a race or every video is me doing a training session. I think it can be way more high quality than that. There's different people that you can watch do a faster session if you want to do that kind of thing.